You know, lately we've been talking about our food system. Well, just as we were talking about beef, guess what? Bill Gates makes a new announcement about cattle, saying that we don't need cattle. Why do we use cattle? I mean, all of this, this fly thing represents is really no use for cattle. Wow. We're going to talk about what he just said and how this is the way they program. Like we talked about with the TV dads, this is the way they program. So we'll discuss what Bill Gates just said. Also, is it over for Trump? We're going to discuss his whole situation around the files, around his AG, around Bongino and Patel. Bongino takes a few days off to figure out what is next for him. Remember, I talked about this last week, almost exclusively, saying that either Bongino and Patel will be gone by certain times. Bongino quicker, Patel by midterms, unless Bondi is gone. We discussed that last week. I promise you, the information we get is pretty good and pretty wise. We'll discuss that whole situation because guess what? Good things are happening. Did you know we just hit a surplus for June? But you probably didn't hear about it because everything else is in the way. Trump is going to do a few things or his whole presidency is gone. We'll discuss that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about what Mr. John Sullivan just said. A career journalist, someone who gets a lot of the ins and outs of what's going on in Washington. He says within 7 to 10 days, he said basically a week or two, he said there's something huge coming out about some of the scandals behind closed doors in DC. Is it going to happen? Could this benefit Trump? I think it could, but ultimately I think we got to quit playing around with all this other stuff. Today we're going to discuss all that and a few more stories. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. If you are new, please go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell. Also remember my other channel, Life with Colby Mack, the vlog channel. You actually see what I do here on the farm, what we live, how we live sustainable, and I spend some time with my family. So please go check out the vlog today, Life at Colby Mack. Remember to subscribe over there because that gets you into a drawing. Remember, we just did a giveaway, and the giveaway was a battery bank. It was worth over $800 that we sent out to one of our subscribers. So make sure you are subscribed to both channels. First, let's discuss what Bill Gates just said. And the reason I say this is important, because the last few days we've talked about the sickness with the cows. We talked about how everybody seems to be pushing away from the cows. Listen to what Bill Gates just said, and this was shared this morning. Bill Gates says 6% of global emissions are cows. You can either fix the cows to stop them from actually doing that, or you could just make beef without the cow. Now listen to that last comment. You can make beef without the cow. Bill Gates says we don't need cattle. See, that's what's wrong with petri dish growing and cell regeneration in a lab. What we've done is we're saying, look, God created these animals, but we are in no need of them anymore. Do you realize Bill Gates literally flies privately all across the world on a private jet that's probably doing just as much quote-unquote carbon emissions as the cow? He literally serves in no capacity to speak for our government. Why do we allow him to do this and spew this garbage? Because what it does is it programs us to say, well, we don't need beef. I mean, he basically said, we don't need it. It's causing damage. We see a disease in Mexico. We sure don't need them. And all of a sudden, beef is at all-time high. And if we do petri dish beef, they said it could cut the price in half, by like 50%. You see how they're programming to say the same thing? But what we don't realize is that cow is actually feeding our grounds. Now, I'm not talking about CAFOs and raising them in stockyards, but if you look out over my pastures over there, my cows are eating the grasses, stomping on the weeds, and filling manure full of a pasture, fertilizing it back. It's going to make that regenerative growth, and it's going to actually make our pastures better. It's amazing how for years upon years upon years, buffalo, cattle, wild horses, everything grazed across this nation. And this nation wasn't worried about famine. They weren't worried about the shifting of erosion of soil. It was men that did that. Now, do we want to get rid of man? Like Bill Gates is saying we get rid of cattle? Now, that's a slippery slope, but I wish Bill Gates would just go away. If someone is trying to change the food system, you got to ask why. You know why he wants to change it? He also is part of an agenda that raises this food through cell research. So he's going to become even more filthy rich because of it. See, there's always a game plan behind humans. See, that's the thing about God. God created all this for us and no benefit other than us serving him. Compared to humans, they want to do the same thing and have a God complex so you can worship them. And that's where it gets crazy. I don't want to depend on Bill Gates for my beef. I don't want to depend on anyone for my beef. God provided the beef. Why don't we just allow the cow to walk around? Because I promise you, that cow and its lineage has been here for 6,000 to 7,000 years, just like us humans. And for some reason, no one's ever questioned their existence. They've always provided for us until the people who actually own the businesses that grow it in the petri dish says we don't need them anymore. Instead of depending on that cow grazing and having independence on your own land, he wants you to be fully dependent on him, because guess what? You can't grow that petri dish meat. You have to look for someone else to do it for you. Pay attention. All right, I want to get to the meat of the story of the day, and this is where I really want to kind of camp out. Trump's in, to me, his biggest crisis of his administration. All the other stuff like the Russia collusion, all that stuff, that's all a farce. That's all made up stuff, fake news. But this one is pretty much all on him. You know, if you remember, even back on the campaigns, even in the first Trump term, and even when he ran the second time and didn't win, Biden won, but he pushed for this Epstein release. He said he was going to get good people in there to do this investigation. They're going to release a lot of this, be transparent. Well, they're not being transparent at all. It actually came out that the tape was fake. It actually shows that people like Bongino and Patel, who were absolutely for releasing these documents, are saying they're non-existent, so they're not going to release them anymore. After saying all this with the client list, all this with the black book with Maxwell, and all of a sudden now, it's gone. Now, Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell, you can do a deep dive. That's not for us to do here, but Robert Maxwell had a lot of ties to people like the Bill Barrs. They had a lot of ties to people like Donald Trump. Here's the thing. Everybody's saying, well, if they release this list truly, and this is what Alan Dershowitz, which was Epstein's lawyer, which actually served as Trump's lawyer and a lot of big key figures, he says, if they release this list that he has seen, he said that I exclusively have seen the list, but again, with attorney confidence, we can't release it here. But he said, I've seen it, and if this list comes out, then ultimately it would cause for a catastrophic situation for high-profile people. Well, here's the thing. It's either have known criminals leading us, or trying to say, look, we're trying to clean it up and have a catastrophe of getting rid of a lot of high-ranking people, senators, congressmen, big billionaires, and even leaders. The thing is this, I would rather have the contagion and catastrophic crises of trying to get rid of all these people because of their dirty deeds than to try to cover it up. If we're one nation built on God, I don't want a bunch of, people that cause, crimes. I don't want to condone that behavior of certain high-profile people just because they're high-profile for doing very illegal things with people they shouldn't have done. And the thing is this is what makes me the most mad, is people like the Tucker Carlsons and things like that. Everybody wants to blame this little tiny country, the smallest country that actually has power in the world would be Israel. And it's amazing how everybody wants to blame their leadership, their intelligence for Epstein. We do realize he did work for British intelligence. That is already confirmed. There's an article that he personally wrote that he says he worked for the CIA. Sometimes we just got to, we put our big boy pants on and realize that it may have been us in the CIA being dirty. The JFK, the MLK, the RFK, and now the Epstein. It may just be that we had dirty players at the top. Now, could Mossad and British intelligence, MI6, and all of them have a piece in that? Maybe so. We probably all work together to be very convoluted, because remember, when you want someone to do something, blackmail and extortion pretty much is the way that a lot of these high-profile people would probably do things. Because guess what? If someone's an uber billionaire, you're not going to coerce them with money, are you? No, you're going to coerce them with probably blackmail. You're going to coerce them with extortion. You're going to coerce them in other ways. So I think that this list situation is a big deal, and I believe it will destroy Trump's base and any chance for midterms, and also any chance for growing. Now, if you've noticed, Vance has been extremely quiet. Extremely quiet. But who hasn't been quiet is people like the Elon Musk. People who has not been quiet is the people who actually supported Trump. And I think that if he does not clean this up, either come out and apologize and say, here's the list, whoever's on it, good luck with that. Now, do I believe that Trump is on this list? No, because if Trump was on this list, remember Biden had this list too. I think that Trump would have been exposed. It would have been quote unquote leaked. So I don't believe that Trump is on this kind of list that we're worried about. Do I believe that there was ties that Epstein has with other people that were not quote-unquote on the list that will probably be thrown into this? Probably so. But again, when you tie yourself to someone that's probably not the best, then I think all that getting exposed is a good thing. For instance, I tell my children, and I imagine you've told your children too, you know, I want you to have good friends. I want those friends to be good kids. I want them to raise like you. I don't want my son hanging out with a drug dealer or a gangbanger. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Because he's not a drug dealer or gangbanger. And he may say, well, Dad, I'm not doing all that. Yeah, but why would you want to associate with that? Did you hear what I said? Why would you want to associate with that? So all these people who says, well, no, I wasn't tied to the whole file situation. I didn't go to the island. I didn't do all that. Yeah, but you were associated with it in some form or fashion. So there was money, blackmail, extortion, or he was your friend. And there's a lot of weird things like that. It's amazing how Bill Gates is talking about some cows, but he don't want you to release the list because he's pretty much on it. Why do you think his wife left him? He said it was just too much of a shady situation. I think the reason they don't want to release this has everything to do with the high-profile people on it. And they know that a lot of people would be either perp-walked or given, you know, passes. And to be honest with you, if you give them passes, then you're talking about all-out chaos. You know, I do think, I don't like Andrew Tate at all, but he made one comment I thought was huge. He says, do you think that this government, who is built up of the biggest players, the most high-profile people who's doing some probably shady junk, is going to listen to a bunch of just middle-class people who are claiming they want the list? He said it doesn't matter, because they know in a political situation, I mean, for instance, and I'm going to throw this out, Andrew Tate didn't say this, but he said, just think in your mind, have you heard about the Fort Knox money lately? You ain't talked about the gold at all there, have you? Because it just got wiped away. See, that's what I'm saying. What we do, because we're in such a news cycle and our life changes so quick, that for the majority of the high-profile people, all these politicians, all these people, they're just like, oh, yeah, we'll get bad press for a few weeks, but to be honest with you, we'll come up with something else, and all of a sudden it'll go away. Prime example, John Sullivan comes out and says there's going to be something dropping huge in 7 to 10 days. Now, John Solomon's not one of those, you know, I like Alex Jones, but he's not an Alex Jones kind of guy. He's not just going to throw this out like clickbait and just say it's not going to happen. I want you to listen to what John Solomon just stated. And I think this is the way, this is how news works. I don't want to disregard what John Solomon is saying. I believe a story would break. I think when big stories break, though, it helps you kind of whitewash all the other stuff like Fort Knox, or whitewash the other stuff like the files. Listen to this. John Solomon says Trump supporters are calling for accountability. Well, guess what? They're going to get huge surprises over the next 10 days. He hints that what's coming is going to shake up in a major way. According to Solomon, the DOJ, FBI are in deep, high-level investigations of true origins of some of the conspiracy things that's going on. This is where you're going to go back to the Comey. This is where you're going to go back to the Brennan, even somewhere like Obama. Now, here's the thing. That's all big stories, and yes, we need to know the truth about that. But I'm scared that if you noticed, when they shut down the closed case of the Epstein situation and Trump did the whole thing, well, are you still talking about that guy? The same day, this dropped a little nugget that Brennan and Comey are being looked at by DOJ and FBI. Here's what I like, though. I like the fact that Bongino is kind of taking a few days because him and Bondi are not going to get along. There's a leaked story saying that it's either going to be Bondi or Bongino. Well, if Trump picks Bondi, what he did is just pick the establishment. He picked the Bill Barr. He picked the political hacks. If he picks Bongino and fires Bondi, then you see there is hope. I'm just telling you, if Bongino walks, and I don't believe Kash Patel will walk yet. I really don't. I believe Kash still, I think Kash is willing to, stay in it a little bit longer. Word is that Kash would be gone by midterms. Bongino will be gone in the next few weeks or months. If that takes place and Bongino walks, after giving up so much to serve at the behest of the president, and they keep Bondi over Bongino, it's over. No matter what drops about Brennan and all that. For most people like me, I still worry about the gold in Fort Knox. I've not swayed on that. I'm still worried about the fact that these files are out there, because do I care? I mean, I think everybody has made mistakes in their life. I'm not saying that no one's perfect. The thing is, though, if we don't know who's at the top of these situations, and we don't know all the dangers and the risk of these people at the top, and these high-profile people are actually doing illegal things, they need to be exposed. Did you hear the interview with Tucker Carlson did with George Santos? Now, George Santos, to me, is too much I never liked the guy, but I think his intrepidation and his bombasticness, his looseness of lips, kind of like if you remember Madison Cawthorn calling out some of the Senate and some of the congressmen, and all of a sudden, man, he got blackballed bad. I think Santos is in the same boat. I think every one of these senators and congressmen are dipping into their funds like Santos is doing. But Santos also was very open with some of the secrets and some of the craziness going behind. He dropped bombs like, for instance, he was saying, you know, there's some very sleazy things going on between members of Congress and staff. He talked about how some of the things that were, you know, I mean, really adulterous. He talked about how they knew about a lot of insider trading and knew about some of the major stocks to pick. I mean, he was naming these things. And I think because he was naming these things, it gave them a reason to say, look, you're doing illegal things, you're taking money, we're going to bust you for it. Now, was he taking money? I mean, he was doing like every other congressman and Senate. How do you think these congressmen and Senate get filthy rich? The same way George Santos was taking the money. But because he was actually opening the door to some of the scandals and corruption in D.C., I think that's why they busted him. You know, so I think we're in the same boat here. I believe what Trump is scared of, and I do believe Trump is scared of this, is because some of his biggest donors, some of his biggest supporters, probably some of his best friends are tied to this list. Now, at his age, and should he care? No, but remember, he's been friends with those people for a lot longer than he's been president of the MAGA base. We've known Trump in this capacity for, what, 20 years now, 16 years now, whatever it may be, when he actually came down the escalator stairs, whatever it's been. His aspirations have been for political, you know, situations the last, you know, 2 decades. Well, for the last, you know, 50 to 70 years, he's been friends with these people. So I think that that's what they're looking out for. I think they're looking out for each other. They're looking out for political hacks. I think they're looking out for the people who actually, quote unquote, run the country. And I think they know that they're not going to upset all these big billionaires. They don't really care about the middle class or lower class or the people, you know, changing in the symbols that want to know these files, because to be honest with you, like, eventually they'll forget about it like they did Fort Knox. Eventually they'll forget about it like the lockup Hillary Clinton. Eventually they'll forget about it like they forgot Bill Clinton and Monica. You see how that goes? We forget about it. But you see, this is what it does. It covers up even the good things. I want you to listen to this, because this is where you miss out, because we're not hitting these situations and being transparent. Listen to what we missed right here. The United States reports the biggest budget surplus, the first time in 20 years that we've seen a surplus of money coming into America. $26 billion extra in June, which means we could go and put that on the debts. Don't give it to Congress, they'll spend it. But Trump just fired 1,300 people yesterday, or laid them off. So actually, there's good things happening. There is absolutely great things happening. I mean, the infrastructure, the money coming in, the surpluses, but you will not hear that because all this stuff that they've allowed to cloud it. And I do blame that. Again, I'm a business owner, very, very small compared to somebody like a Trump, but what I'm saying is, if your crew does something wrong, you know, the chief of that business is the one to blame. He may have not done it, but because he's over the ship, he will go down with the ship. So this being said, is Trump to blame for the file not being released? He's actually probably not the main one to blame, but because he chose to keep people like Bondi over it and the people of the establishment over it, what's going to happen is he's actually destroying the reputation of people like Bongino and Patel and actually hurting himself with the base. And there's a major cover-up going on. And so it covers up the good things, like the Brennan investigation that he should be, you know, actually brought up for. Like the situation with the surplus of money coming in from our budget. Like the benefit of firing all these people that we don't need. Did you know the government has 2,000 agencies? 3 million people work in the government. Do we really need 3 million people working in the federal government with 2,000 agencies? Absolutely not. But we cannot do anything about that. Even the Supreme Court says that Trump has the right to fire. 8-1 vote the other day. Even some of the liberals voted with Trump. But because we are talking about these flipping files that they have not literally released, we can't hear the good things that Trump administration is doing. So here's my words, and Trump's not listening to me, but if I was his advisor, I'd say, look, I mean, literally, hell or high water, I'd release these files. Release them. Come back and say, look, it was a major cover-up. It wasn't me covering up. It was the establishment. But I'm just going to lay it all out there. Part of draining the swamp is even hurting some of the people that I actually like. Here's the list. And let people stand, guilty or innocent, not by the media, but by truth. If they were just people who had a glass of wine with Epstein at a party in D.C., no harm, no foul. Won't actually be going through all the major player situation. But if all of a sudden they're on the list, they're going to the island, they're doing shady stuff, we need to know about it because they shouldn't be over our livelihood. They shouldn't be over our government. They shouldn't be over what we believe is set up as a city on a hill and a Judeo-Christian valued nation. We shouldn't be led by people who were doing very dark things. My push is to release the list and then move on. Release the list, let it go through the media, let the people get busted, the Bill Gates or whomever, Reid Hoffmans, whoever, even some of the Republicans probably are on that list. Bust them, get them out of there. And then you're going to actually clean up Washington more than probably any other time because you start releasing the names. If there's a bunch of presidents on the list, so be it. If there's a bunch of billionaires on the list, so be it. Which there's already been tons of billionaires tied to him. The Wexlers and Blacks and all that. I mean, like, there's tons of people tied to him. Release the list. If it was me, I would release the list. And if he says, here's even a better deal. Say Trump doesn't want to be the one, the face of it. What he should do is offer a plea deal with Ghislaine Maxwell. Offer it to a network that's our podcast and say, look, we'll cut her sentence in half if she releases the information. Let her come out as a whistleblower and let her release the list and be done. If he does not release this, remember, this is what I think liberals and establishment and rhinos are missing about the middle class. It actually, to me, has nothing to do with the list. It has nothing to do with actually the names on the list to bust them. It has everything to do with the trust of the government. That's where it comes down to. Do I care? And to be honest with you, us in the middle class may not know 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 of those names. But it has to do with this. The trust and the transparency of the government. If they're transparent and we see the list, do I care if Leon Black or Wetzler or Bill Clinton's on it? Truthfully, I don't. But what I do care about is this. You're exposing the people that should not be in our government. And then it allows us to trust our government more. Kash Patel, Bongino, Trump, more because they're actually, even though they probably are against their better judgment, they're releasing the list. You see how that works? Sometimes it's not about the list, it's about the release of it. Sometimes it's not about the gold being there or not in Fort Knox. It's the fact that you're trying to cover up. No one's seen the gold since the 70s. Why in the world have we not audited it? We need to audit it. Not because if the gold's there or not. I mean, we need to deal with that, no doubt. But it's the fact that the government should be transparent. Remember, the government cannot run with our taxpayers. Remember, the government cannot run without our tax dollars. I mean, they can't. The government cannot be voted on and actually put in power without our vote. Now, sadly, we've been so programmed to believe that they're in charge of us. It should be the opposite way around. We're in charge of them, correct? 330 to 350 million people in America. Let's say 150 to 200 million of those are voters. The rest are children or people underage or people who are here that's not voting. So 150, 200 million people. And there's what? 500 or 600 people that are elected in office sitting in Washington between the representatives and Congress and the other few little things that we elect. So why do those 500 or 600 people get to set policy for 330, 350 million people? Because us, the 150 to 200 million, put them in there. Our tax dollars are paying for them. So now it's time to pull our ace out of the hat and our spade and our rook. If you're playing rook, the spade always sits on top, the ace of spades. It's time to pull it out and say, look, you work for us. Get your crap together, release the files, be done with it, and therefore we can move on and actually be happy when we get a surplus. Be happy when we fire people. But until we do that, everybody's going to look back and say, this is the redheaded stepchild that you didn't take. This is the problem that you didn't fix. This needs to take place. You need to fix it. Because right now, when Bondi talks about how they're going to bust Brennan and Comey and we're working on something huge, everybody says, yeah, but you missed out on the last one. So how can we trust you for this one? It's just my thoughts. Guys, let me know your thoughts on today's video. I believe if Trump does not do this, it's over. I believe it's over. I believe you will never see a strong enough leader, because this is our time. This is our time to fix it. And if we don't do it now, it will not be fixed, and we're going to go deeper in a darker hole in America. Because we're allowing Bill Gates to lead us and tell us that cows are for no need, and that his company that produces this fake meat can actually be the winner. This is what you truly need. Truth is, if that list came out, he probably wouldn't be talking about beef, would he? He'd be talking about his own life and seeing if he's going to be sentenced to prison. Whew. Big deals. Let's talk about it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Remember, please subscribe to the channel and go check out my other channel, Life with Kobe Mac. God bless.